Hey everyone, it's Kelly from Toys with Intent. Happy Wednesday. I'm super excited to be having our guest today, Dr. Jennifer Welch. She is a contributing writer for Toys with Intent, and she's also a parenting expert, psychologist. She did private practice. She's a former colleague of mine. We worked together. She was the director of wellness at the school we were at. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about parenting books. What are some of the best ones out there? What are some ones that we should just skip altogether and see what's there? So I know for me, some parenting books make me feel like crap. And that's not the point. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Parenting books in general, what's the point of them? Are they helpful? That sort of thing. So we'll spend a little bit of time diving into some specific ones and then talk about parenting books in general. So I'm going to go ahead and get Dr. Jennifer Welch here on board with me. If I can find her. Doesn't look like she's here yet. Oh, there she is. All right, so let me go ahead and get her on, and we'll start. Smart lady, she knows her stuff, so I'm excited to have her. There she is. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Kelly. How are you?
Good. How's it going?
Good. I'm so excited.
Thanks. I'm glad you're here. So I was just saying how sometimes parenting books can make me feel like crap. So I'm just curious, before we delve into some books, what's kind of your philosophy on parenting books in general? You think we should have, hundreds on our shelf? We should read one every night, don't even bother with them. What's kind of your thought on parenting books?
So I think it's the answer, like it often is about parenting, is it depends, right? And it's about knowing yourself and knowing why you want those parenting books. I think if you're looking for the answer, and you want a book to tell you, do this and everything's going to be great, then you're going to struggle. But if you're willing to take little bits and pieces from books and not over rely on them, and sometimes, unfortunately, I think they do make us feel like crap because they have us see things about ourselves that we might not want to see. But that's okay if we're able to look at that and then make a change based on that. So really, I think it depends. And usually we know ourselves and we know what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah. And I like that idea too, of pulling from different books. It's not like you read one and it's the golden answer and then you're a parenting genius for the rest of your life, right? It's about taking kind of different pieces from every book that maybe apply to your philosophy.
Right. And I think oftentimes when I read parenting books, there are things in there that I sort of go, duh, that I knew that, but you read and it strikes you in a way that maybe you didn't hear before and you're able to apply something differently. So I don't think that you're ever going to find a parenting book that's going to have all the answers that are going to work for you because we're all different and our kids are all different. But little pieces out of books, I think it's well worth it if you're the kind of person that can read that and know, some of this might work for me and some of it might not. And some of it might work for one of my kids and might not work for the others.
Great point. Oh, such a good point. So with so many books out there, I feel like there's a new parenting book every day. I know we're going to delve into, I think, 4. What out of these 4 kind of stood out to you, or what was kind of, how'd you go about choosing ones that you wanted to focus on?
So I picked these 4. Some of them are a little older, some of them are brand new. But one of the things I like about all 4 of these books is they focus on the importance of trusting your kids. And I think that's something that makes sense to us, but it's really hard to put into practice because we're afraid, right? We're afraid our kids will get hurt or they'll get in over their heads or they'll fail and they won't feel good or whatever. So trusting your kids, but also communicating to your kids that you trust them. That is massively important. And not do because we don't realize how important it could be. I also like that all 4 of these books focus on the importance of parenting, not from a place of fear, but from a place of our values. So if any time we're parenting and we're doing it because if we don't, what if, right? Or my kid might fall behind or my kid won't have all the whatever, that's almost always bad. So all 4 of these books in different ways talk about that. And they also talk about something we all know, it's easy to say, the importance of letting your kids struggle, right? Much easier to say than to actually do because we don't like kids in pain or suffering. But I really like all of that. And the last point is all 4 of these books talk about the importance of taking care of yourself. And, maybe sometimes, especially for us moms, it's really hard to prioritize ourselves. But these books talk about how the research has shown that's one of the most important ways to be an effective parent.
Healthy parenting Healthy kids. Yep, absolutely. And I love your point about fear. I mean, I did a video last week about resiliency, and the role fear is playing in parenting and raising kids nowadays is insane. And so I love your philosophy of not kind of parenting from a place of fear. I think that's so key. So let's delve into your first one that you chose. I think it's the self-driven child, right?
There it is, Self-Driven Child. It's got a subtitle, which is The Science and Sense of Giving Your Kids More Control Over Their Lives, written by a neuropsychologist and a guy that runs a tutoring company. So I love that balance. Just released in 2018. I just read it about a couple weeks ago. I absolutely love this book. And one of the things I love about it is that it talks about the importance of giving your kids more control from the time that they're itty bitty. And I think that's so counter to what many of us do, either because we think our kids can't handle it or don't know what they need or whatever the reason is. But the important thing is that they do. And one of the other things that these two authors do a really good job of explaining is, again, based on research and their experience and their different careers, know our kids. And that's really hard, I think, as a parent to accept. But when we accept that and then follow their lead and trust them and become self-driven, that helps them focus, function from a place of internal motivation versus external. And then they're going to be forever.
So it's kind of like if you helicopter or if you're, I don't know, afraid to let them do it, that intrinsic self-drivenness doesn't kind of evolve, right? Because we're trying to control it and we're almost subconsciously telling them, actually, I don't believe that you can do it. But it sounds like this is kind of that counterintuitive philosophy to it.
Right. And it's, kids are smart. We all know kids who know that their parents say grades don't really matter, but the kids say, no, my parent doesn't really mean that. And so about communicating to your kid from the time that you do trust them, that they do know themselves, that you're going to let them lead and you're going to follow. And that's scary, right? So that takes courage to face that fear of letting them be the ones in control. And it also takes humility because you accept, maybe I don't know my kid as well as I thought I do, and maybe I don't know myself as well as I thought I did. And open to learning about yourself while you're parenting is absolutely huge. Another thing, a great thing about this book is at the end of every chapter, they give you what you do tonight. So, right, if you've got an issue going on, you can open this book to a certain chapter, go to the end, and it'll give you very clear, practical, do this tonight, and it'll help with this issue. So I think that's great.
Okay. And what age range, I mean, can a mom of a toddler, mom of a teenager, it applies to everything?
I think all four of these books really apply. You can apply them to kids of all ages because it's never too early and it's never too late, right, to change your parenting style to try to be a better, more effective parent. So absolutely for all age kids.
Okay. So that is The Self-Driven Child. One of the takeaways I love about that, what you just said, is being able to just open up the book and take something right there, tangible, and apply it. Sometimes parenting books, they're long-winded and you don't really know how, they're not practical, but that sounds like a pretty practical guide.
Right. I think it's pretty easy. If you don't have time to read the whole thing, we're all busy. You can open it up to a section, see what the chapter's about, and then go to the end and see, I'm going to try this tonight. And be nice to yourself. Be kind to yourself. If it doesn't work right away, that's okay. Or maybe that's not going to work for you, so don't do it.
Yeah, you mean it's not supposed to be perfect right away? Okay, perfect. All right, so let's see the next one. I have on here, Teach Your Children Well. Tell me a little bit about that book and what you like about it.
Children Well is by Madeline Levine. She's a clinical psychologist who I absolutely love. She is affiliated with challengesuccess.org. Great. I would check them out online if you want some great information. She works there with Denise Pope. Subtitle for this one is Parenting for Authentic Success, Why Values and Coping Skills Matter More Than Grades, Trophies, or Fat Envelopes, right? So I love this because it's about getting back to your core, parenting from a place of values, being intentional about the choices you make. And it's her definition, let me tell you her definition of authentic success, because I think it's awesome. It is being the best me I can be as a part of a community, and includes a component of meaningful contribution and connection with others. So there you go, right? I think for most of us, what do we want for our kids? We want them to be connected to others, to want to give back, be of service. So she does a fabulous job of focusing on coping skills. There are, let's see, 7 coping skills that she said, if you help your kids develop these coping skills, they're going to grow up and have authentic success, which is what I just told you her definition was. Each child has a different coping skill, and one of the examples is creativity. So that's creativity is your kids saying, let's look at this differently instead of what's the right answer. Absolutely love that, right? Yeah. She talked about how entitlement kills creativity because kids are just focused on what's the right answer, how do I get an A, how do I get into the best school? And she's really all about the opposite of that. It's a great combination of research, her clinical experience, and her parenting. She's got 2 sons. She talks a lot about decisions she made that didn't go well and what she. So I would highly recommend this book. It is one of those, Kelly, that can make you feel sort of crappy, right? Because you read it and you realize, I'm not doing this quite the way I want to. The parenting's about, right? Realizing that and then changing it so that you are doing what will help you be the most effective parent.
And it sounds like, I mean, I haven't read this one, but it's a little bit counterculture, right? Because we are such a grade-based, success-driven, GPA, SAT, you know, all of that, where she's kind of actually saying, nope, and we know that, obviously, as therapists and parents, but that's not essentially what's going to help your child thrive. So I think having a book that kind of reinforces that message helps. I know it helps me as a parent. Okay, I'm on the right track. I don't need to freak out if my kid got a B. Is that right?
Exactly. And exactly what I think she's devoted herself to doing is helping all of us realize what we really do want for our kids and how oftentimes our actions aren't telling them that's what we want for you. When the first thing we ask them when they get in the car after school is, what'd you get on your math test? Instead of, who'd you sit next to at lunch? Did you meet anybody new today? Everything we do sends them messages about what we value matters, right? And so she's helping us realize if you help your kids develop these 7 coping skills, and she gives you clear, do this, don't do this. I love it. The end of those skills, there's a list of, if you do this, it'll help. If you do these, you're going to hurt. And so I would look at it and go, well, I'm doing some that hurt, but I'm doing more that help. So I'm going to just focus on those. Really shows with research and her experience that if they develop those coping skills, and you know this, Kelly, that other stuff you're going to get anyway. The grades and the school acceptance letters and all those other things, they're going to come, but you're going to have a kid who is somebody that you would want to hang out with as an adult, who has a real core, who knows why they believe what they believe and why they act the way they act, which is obviously what we all want. We just get sidetracked because we get afraid.
Yep. So it's all about those soft skills, and it's so nice to read a book that reaffirms that. So that was Teach Your Children Well. And again, you can read it young to little to old. And if it makes you feel like crap, don't worry. Right?
Because, I think that's a big part of parenting, right? Is being willing to go, why do I feel like crap about this? Is it something I can change? And if so, I'm going to start, right? That's awesome. And look at what you're modeling for your kids if you're willing to do that.
Absolutely. Okay. You've convinced me. I'm going to read that one. I have times that one now. So the next one we're going to delve into, The Genius in Every Child. Tell me about this.
It's it's an older book. Rick Ackerley is the author. He's an educator. So I love that. It comes from a little bit of a different perspective. He talks about the genius in every child, and it's not what you think, right? It's not the kid that's IQ's off the chart or is always getting A's or read at the age of 3. He talks about the genius in every one of our children. He's referring to the teacher within. And he's that each one of us has a teacher within. It's that little voice. It's that inner sort of compass that I'm doing this for the right reasons, or I'm doing this because I really believe strongly in this. And he that from a really young age, and he has research to back this up, kids have that. And we trust that and follow that instead of assuming they don't know, assuming that we know them better than they know themselves. Follow trusting that, not being so afraid about the big bad world, and letting kids discover their inner teacher and communicating to them that you value that, right? And the great thing about this book, again, is throughout the book, there's these little gray takeaways. See how little that is?
Yep.
Super easy to open the book to a chapter of something you're struggling with, find a little gray takeaway and go, oh, that makes sense. I can do that right now. I can start changing that now. So love this. Been around for a long time. I think it's an easy, quick read. And I think he's got lots of little pearls of wisdom in there.
Yeah, and you know what that made me think of is so many times I think as parents, unintentionally or intentionally, we don't want to see the genius in our child or the teacher that they're becoming because it's not fitting our mold for them or what society says or culturally. And so we kind of want to mold them in a different direction. And I think this book, and I'm sure all the experts, I think we know, if you just let your child develop and naturally feed into their inner genius, their inner teacher, they're going to be so much better than if we try and craft them.
Yeah, sure, right? And that's something that makes sense to us. It makes sense in our heart, but it's so hard to do. I think especially today, because everywhere you look, there's another high achieving, smart parent who's not doing that. They're scheduling every minute. They're following their kids around. They've got a tutor and a coach and a this and a that. And it's so scary to think, I'm not going to do that. And it's going to be okay, right? Because you can't prove that until your kid grows up and then you see. But I truly believe, I mean, I've told you before, Kelly, about my youngest daughter, who's 6 years younger than my older one, who was so my older one. And I was reading a book by Wendy Mogul when my youngest daughter, Tessa, was little. And Wendy talked about kids being seeds. And you water them, and you give them food, and you give them sunlight, but you don't know what kind of plant they're going to turn into. And that made all the difference for me with my youngest, because I realized she's not going to be the same plant that my older one is. And I started following, and she just started thriving. It's so scary. And it feels right, because I knew what to do with the older one. I figured that out, and now I can't do that again. And it's hard. That's what, you just keep trying.
Oh, I love that. And I know you've heard me talk about this. If anyone out there who has 2 kids or 3 kids or 9 kids will realize that they're all different. And if you try and water and nurture your first seed like your second seed, it ain't going to work. Let me just save you therapy money right now. It's not going to work. So, right?
Not only is it going to work, you can hurt that seed, right? It can grow wrong. It can grow sideways. I mean, I just think it's something that makes sense if you think about it. Yeah, all my kids are different. I know that. But then in practice every day when you're busy and you're stressed and you've got so much going on, it's something that I think you really have to stop and think about. And you have to pause, like I heard you talk about in the talk you did last week. You have to pause. You have to consider what you're doing and why you're doing it as a parent. And that's not always easy to do because we're all busy.
Oh, yes. Okay. So that was The Genius in Every Child. What a fantastic message. Even you just think about the title. I know it's when we delved in, it didn't really get to the genius part, but love that philosophy. Right. I love it. And takeaways, like you said, there's a little box there too. You can apply it. So
absolutely.
Sounds like a great read. Our last one I really like. As you know, we've met this speaker in person, How to Raise an Adult. So why don't you go ahead and tell us about this fantastic read?
Yeah, so this is Julie Lithcott-Hames. Subtitle is Break Free of the Overparenting Trap and Prepare Your Kid for Success. She's a dean, was a dean at Stanford. So worked with high-achieving, overachieving kids and parents. She talks a lot about how even as a college dean, she was still getting calls all the time from parents. And so this is a great book. You would assume, okay, this book is only for teenagers or kids that are entering college. I looked back through this in more detail, and it really has stuff in it that's appropriate for toddlers all the way to 20-somethings. Probably more than the other 3, a little more geared towards parents of teens, but really wisdom in here that could help you even if you've got little kids. She's basically focused on the importance of not overparenting and how detrimental that can be to your kids / young adults. I like this book for a lot of reasons. She has some research in here. She talks about her experience, but it's also got 4 different steps towards things that will help your kids thrive. So the first one is 9 steps to increase their sense of purpose.
Oh.
Very easy. Look in there and find, do this, do this, do this, do this, and they'll have a more of a sense of purpose, right? There's that internal locus of control. That same thing we've been talking about. Second one is 6 steps to increase their resilience, which obviously can do kids, their ability to bounce back, to struggle and fail and learn from that. Next, this one I love, 6 steps to better take care of yourself, right? So 2 of these 4 books talk a lot about if you take better care of yourself, your kids are better off, which is one of those duh moments, right? But we don't, and we know we don't. And then the last 9 scripts for complicated moments, which I absolutely love, because she talks about if you're brave enough to start parenting from this place of values, to not parent from fear, to let your kids do some things that other parents might think are just wacky. Parents are not like that, right? And they're going to push back, or they're going to say things to you or your kids. So she's got scripts in there for when that kind of stuff happens, here's what you can say. Here's what you can help your kids say. And I absolutely love that, because it is scary to swim upstream as a parent and to try to do some of the stuff that makes perfect common sense, but not a lot of parents are doing. So she gives you language and your kids' language for here's what you say when somebody doesn't like it.
Oh. Yeah, again, a counterculture, right? That a lot of parents think you need to be kind of on your kid. You need to be paving the way. And here you are having a dean at Stanford saying, actually, that whole philosophy, it didn't work. Because your kid may have gotten there, but guess what? Now they can't do anything with it. So I really like that we kind of ended with this book, because although that book, you can read it, for any age child, the end of the day, you could do it all right and have the right philosophy and whatever, but if your kid doesn't have all those skills, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And she's not.
Absolutely. And she's somebody, you're right, it's beautiful, because she's somebody that worked at one of the schools that people try, right? And she's proven, she talks from experience about kids that got there, they won the race. But they got there and they had no idea who they were. They have no sense of self-control. They have no internal drive. They have no idea who they are, what they want to be. And obviously, kids' parents didn't want that for them. I really think all 4 of these books talk about parenting in the present. And it's so hard to do that, because everything's about the next step, right? When your kids are babies, you're applying years ahead to preschool. When they're in and so it's easy to get sucked into thinking, I've got to help my kids be thinking about what's next. But you know what you miss when you do that? Your kids. And opportunity to share your with them and to enjoy them. So all books help you enjoy your kids and learn more about yourself in the process, and raise kids that are going to, again, be adults that you'd want to hang out with someday.
And even if it's not the adult you thought it would be, right? I mean, even if your child, grows into this beautiful seed, that maybe it's not what you planned for them. I think I'm hearing a theme in all these too, is that letting your kid thrive the way they're going to thrive. And I mean, that's kind of a takeaway for me from this conversation is that's huge. And trusting yourself, trusting your kid, and backing up a little bit sounds like, again, a lot of things I've heard in all these books.
Absolutely. Huge, right? And how that's so scary to let go and to let your kid be what they're going to be and be who they're going to be, and to know that there are times when you're not going to like that. I have a son who would game all the time if I let him. And I struggle with how to help him figure out, look, you have this ability to be enthusiastic about something. That's awesome. Let's see how you apply that in other parts of your life. It is scary times when your kids like things that you don't value or act in a way that doesn't make sense to you. That's where the courage comes in, right? And the humility to say, I might not know exactly what's best all the time, and I'm going to trust this process and I'm going to trust my kid. And again, hugely important to communicate that trust to your kid, because you think they know. You and I know, Kelly, we sat in those counselors' offices in those high schools. Those kids see through it. If they really care more about that grade or that acceptance letter, they know it. It doesn't matter how many times you say, do your best, that's all that matters. They know. And it's based on everything else that you sort of surround that with. So talk to them about their relationships. Talk to them about everything that you value and you care about, and the rest of it, it'll happen.
And examining in yourself too, right? I spoke last week about, raising resilient kids and how come it's so challenging. And sometimes it's our own issues with failure. And again, a lot of it's our own stuff that we just project onto our kids, right? They're not getting that perfect grade. They're not skinny enough. They're not all athletic and all these things. It's our own stuff. And I heard you talk a lot about that too, right? Examining who we are, and then also taking care of ourselves and how that translates to kids. I remember Dr. Chris Bullard had said, the number one thing to stressed out kids is stressed out parents, right? I mean, there's a strong correlation there. So again, self-care is a huge piece of all this.
Yeah, and I think being open to learning about ourselves is scary. Again, right? There we are. We're plucked right back in. I got to be open to maybe learning something about myself that I don't like. But that's part of parenting. You can't be in a relationship with kids that's that close and that's good and bad and all over the place and not learn about yourself, right? And the best you can do is be open to that and then figure out, do I want to change anything related to whatever it is you just learned? You're absolutely right. I think so many times as parents, we're projecting stuff onto our kids that we're not even aware we're doing it. So you can take one thing away from this, be open to that awareness. That's a huge, huge first step. Just being open to, yeah, maybe that was a little bit more about me than about me, right? And if you can say that to yourself, awesome. If you can then say to your kid, what a huge gift you're giving them to be able to say, you know what, I just screwed up. I got so worked up about that, and it didn't matter to you, it mattered to me. I mean, when we care more than our kids do about anything, wow, they love that, don't they? Because we take all the responsibility from them. They don't have to stress about it, and they can whatever. And then we're surprised that they don't seem to care. Well, they don't. So I really do think it's a daily sort of willingness to stop and reflect and think about, obviously, your part in this super strong relationship that you have with your kids.
Okay, I'm going to wrap up with this because I've heard you say this so many times. It's one of my favorite things that you say is that every day is a do-over in the parenting world. Something I'm translating loosely, but and apologizing if you mess up, it's okay. And like we're talking about parenting books, it doesn't have to be perfect. Literally doesn't. And in fact, it's almost damaging if it is perfect.
Right.
So I love when you say, every day is a do-over, every hour is a do-over. If you mess up as a parent, that's cool. Just keep at it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Forgive yourself, be kind to yourself. And if you can acknowledge that to your kids, I truly believe, I've seen it in my practice, I've seen it in schools, I've seen it in my family, and I've seen it in the research. That is a gift to your kids. Think about it. If we're asking our kids to be resilient, to fail and struggle and learn from that, what a better way to teach them that's okay than to show them that you did it. And did it in the relationship with them. They know you love them and you messed up, but you were trying and you're going to do better the next day or the next time. Huge gift. They learn so much from that. And you're, which again, parent for the present. Don't worry about tomorrow or next week or college or whatever. Be in it with your kids, because I have a 20-year-old and they're gone before you know it. And they're different. They move off. So every single minute is a huge opportunity to just connect with your kids, to learn about yourself, to learn about them, and be in it, because it's awesome.
Well, I'm on the other end of the spectrum, and so I feel like what is it? The days are long, the years are short. Apparently, allegedly, I'm in the thick of it. It feels like the days never end, but I like that, parent in the present. So to recap, we have the self-driven child, teach your children well, the genius in every child, and how to raise an adult. All of them could really be read if you've got toddlers to teens. The last one maybe a little bit older, but all those are available on Toys with Intent. You can find them there. Any other parenting expert wisdom? Anything else you want to share about parenting books or parenting in general?
It's hard. It's hard. And you know what? It's also awesome. And every day is different. Every kid is different. I've learned so much about myself. I'm still learning. Just be kind to yourself. Be open to wherever that journey takes you. And you know what? Remember that childhood is not a race. It should be them ambling along in their life and figuring out who they are, and you watching that happen and helping them when they need it. We know all kids need boundaries at times, but instead of you always being out there controlling things, just enjoy the whole process and find others that you talk to and connect and gripe with and cry with and drink with if you do that. So that when you're with your kids, you can just be with your kids, and then you have your people who you can talk to about how hard it was or how awesome it was, or both all at once.
Yep. There's a lot of judgment out there. There's a lot of judgment of parenting and parenting styles and all that. And stay strong. Don't give into that. Do what you feel is right and is going to make your child thrive and be happy. So, well, thank you so much. I told everyone that you are a parenting expert. Wisdom, so smart. I'm so happy to have you. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And everybody just hang in there.
All right. Thank you. I'll say bye to Dr. Welch. Everyone else, have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday. And if for some reason you want to watch this again, it's going to be in the feed. And then, of course, all the books we talked about are on Toys with Intent under the parenting section. Okay, we'll see you soon. Thank you.